Afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm George Crichlow, and my thesis is called Organizing Principle. So today, what I'm going to do is take you through four things. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to talk about products, people, and organizations. In my prior life, before SVA, I made a living observing. First, as a business owner, I observed things, and then as a marketer, and ultimately in advertising and branding. And in my experience, what I observed is that the process of how products come to market is actually broken. So in coming to SVA, what I wanted to do is really embrace myself in the making process. So I threw myself into the making process by first exploring the spaces that are overlooked and underutilized on the desktop space. The first product that I made is called Pedestal, and it's based on the idea and the notion that if you literally put your bag on a pedestal, it'll change your outlook on work. Second, moving to the top of the desk, I created a product called Spool. And Spool is a product that combines two things, a hat holder and a headphone stand. And what it does over time, when you combine the two, it creates this playful character that becomes representative of who you are. And then lastly, I created a product called Updown. And Updown is a desktop organizer that minimizes clutter on your desktop space. And what it does, it creates place for you to work and place for you to produce your work. And what I found in making all these products, the things that they all had in common was first, they changed your mindset on how you work. They provided moments of delight. And ultimately, they created organizing ways you can work in your own professional space. So this led to my first breakthrough. And this is what led to the organizing principles. And for me, as a designer, what I'm really interested in is in designing things that are functional, things that are engaging, and things that are efficient in how they're used. And in this making process, what I found and discovered by making these products is that while these designs work for individuals, they don't necessarily influence the decisions that people will make in groups. So I shifted from designing for spaces to designing for people. And in my research, I came across nudge theory by Richard Thaler, who argues that positive reinforcement can influence the motives and incentives that people and individuals make. Using this as an inspiration, I was at this bar on a cold November evening, and this commercial came on. And while it was disruptive, it was out of context in terms of a bar, because they were asking you to call a number, visit a website, and give your personal information up. And I thought, how could this be a better experience in the context of a bar? So I asked myself, can I make donating a compelling and rewarding experience? And because it was November, I decided to partner with an organization called Movember. And what they do that really well is that they're dedicated to eliminating prostate cancer in men. And they do that really well by branding the month of November using the stash. And this led to an inspiration for Because. And Because is a platform that positively reinforces your choices. Using the bar as a platform, I designed coasters that harken back and play with the November stash. And the goal of this project and these coasters was to reward people for the behaviors that they currently do. In this case, in the context of a bar, it was drinking. So I took the coasters to a bar, and I briefed the bartenders on how to give the coasters out, and then I sat back and observed. And in watching, the same result happened every time. Customers would order a drink, and unbeknownst to them, when they paid with their credit card, a portion of that sale would go to Movember Foundation. The bartender would bring the drink with the branded coaster and thank them for their purchase and support. The customers, unbeknownst to them, would read the coaster and be pleasantly surprised that by doing anything, they actually did something positive. And as a result, they would enjoy their current drink better. And over, what I found in watching over the day is that they would actually choose to drink again And by doing something that they enjoyed, they were actually helping other people. So what I learned in this making process and creating this experience is that it is possible to make a long process short. You can reward people for the choices that they make, and you can influence future decisions that people may not intend to think they were going to do. So potentially, this idea can change the way people think about social giving. And this is potentially what innovation is. So my next question I had for myself is, can I use this nudge concept to shift the way organizations think in the same way I was trying to do with people? Looking back to my research, I dug into the topic about organizational change, process management, and shifting how companies think. And what became clear to me is that there isn't a clear-cut definition about organizational change. In speaking to experts to get clarity on the topic, I spoke to many people who work across different fields of innovation. And in this process of speaking to me, what I came away with is that the process of innovation is one that we go through when we translate an idea into a practical product, service, or experience. And that's how we enable change within corporations. But what is the process? And how do we get to where we need to be? How do we know where to begin and what we need to fix? And Larry Keeley, partner at Doblin, a consulting firm, says, knowing where to innovate is as important as knowing how to innovate. And as it turns out, there is a process of innovation called the innovator's method, coined by Professors Nathan Furr and Jeff Dyer, who discovered that there are 4 common steps to turn any concept into a scalable business. And along the way, there are techniques that innovation firms use to walk their clients through each of these stages. For instance, IDEO has their human-centered design process, where they use their clients to take them through 3 stages. Doblin has a modular system, which they call their 10 types of innovation, where they use 2 to 3 different types of innovations to identify sustainable businesses. And then Fahrenheit has their money and magic, where they look at solving for a consumer need and the business need at the same time to make sure that products are viable on the market. And what I observed in looking at these companies is that what's not clear is where companies start and stop in this process. But more than ever, companies are investing in innovation. For instance, last year alone, companies spent nearly $650 billion on R&D. But according to founder of Fahrenheit 212, Mark Payne, the success rate of innovation projects remains absurdly low. Big companies like Google can afford to fail. They can afford to hire these types of companies. But the companies that really need the help aren't getting it. So I designed a concept called After Now. And After Now is innovation for startups. It's a platform that introduces startups to techniques to develop their ideas. And we believe that startups can benefit from understanding how to get their ideas off the ground. And that's why we've partnered with innovation firms to help them understand the different methodologies in the different stages so that they can get their business to the next stage. And it works by giving companies diagnostic. When they click on the diagnostic button, they're presented with 2 options. And these options are based on the 2 most pressing questions that startups have, is 1, how to develop an idea, and 2, how to validate it. And today we're going to talk about how to identify an idea. So when they get to this page, presented with a page with a summary of all the different innovation techniques by all the different innovation firms. And in our case today, our company is going to click on how do they define their audience. And when they click on how to define their audience, they're presented with a summary and questions from several different innovation firms that they can look and click through. And today we're going to click on which tools can we use to understand our people. When you click on this section, it presents you with an assortment of techniques that different companies use to identify and understand their audience. And if you click on the card sort technique, it gives you a summary of what card sorting is and provides you a step-by-step process on how it works. And as you scroll through the site, it gives you a video tutorial of how card sorting works and provides you with a case study that's actually been applied and how, and in this example, FutureKit has done it before. And what I've learned by developing this platform is that it's possible to help startups make informed decisions early. Depending on the need of a startup, you can adapt the process to their individual needs. And by introducing these toolkits early to them, you can help them make future decisions about how they organize themselves. And for me, I started this process by trying to design for spaces, which ultimately led me to influencing the experiences and how people move through spaces, and ultimately designing a platform to help people make their own decisions. And what I learned through this whole process of making is that there are many entry points into innovation, but one size doesn't fit all. Rather than advocating for one approach or tool that most innovation firms will ask you to do, we need a combination of methods that don't compete with one another, but actually complement each other. And by understanding where and when to influence the system, we can truly begin to understand how we can change it. Thank you. I want to quickly thank Maddie for all her help and understanding on these late nights. I want to thank my brother who lives in London for being available to talk to me whenever I was around, and I want to thank my family for the support and all they gave me so far. So thank you.
This has been such like a diary of your movement and evolution through the program. Like for me, it just perfectly encapsulates this interesting tension between making things and influencing changing behavior and trying to have some sort of insight and impact on enterprises. You see that?
Yeah. Definitely see it.
Going back to that VC night, I think that there were a lot of confused faces, and it occurred to me that most people don't understand what design is. That seems clear. And so innovation is sort of a better word, right? Businesses aren't afraid of that word, but I'm not sure that they understand what that is. And so this group that you're trying to target, early startups, are likely to not understand innovation and what it can actually do for them. And so how do you plan to sort of bridge at least that first gate of getting them here and engaging in a tool that I think is great? I think it would be great for students. I think it would be great for all sorts of people, social scientists, everyone who's tired of reading about innovation in the press and wants to just understand what the heck this thing is.
Yes, the goal was to compile all the innovation tools that companies use and put them all in one place. So, for instance, as we're here in SVA and students and young startups, what they can do is when they're developing their ideas and they're figuring out what's the best way to go about it, they can come to this single platform and walk through their process to understand it. So my goal was to work with potential universities and incubators to help them understand where they were making missteps so they could potentially avoid those and help them get to the next stage quicker and fail faster without the risk.
There are a lot of companies who give a lot of what they do away. You go to their home pages and they talk about a 3 or a 5 or a 10-step process, but then in some senses as far as it goes until you hire them, right? So you're merely leveraging what they're already giving away. Also, I saw there was some text that said sponsored by, so presumably you're going to be working with these groups, innovation professionals, consultants, experts, who may not already be giving stuff away, but to compel them to give it away through this platform.
Yeah, well, a lot of the companies that I mentioned actually have free sites already where they're giving this content away. All I'm doing is just containing them and giving companies and early stage startups blank canvases that they can try these techniques out. And when they're ready to do them, they can actually call those companies to get more details on how those processes work. And as a result, it can become a referral technique for those companies. When they're ready to come out as full-fledged companies, they have the clients and they know who to speak to about what is it they're doing and where, depending on where they are in the process.
It's a gateway drug to innovation. Yeah. Thank you, George.
Thank you. First, as a business owner, I observe things, and then as a marketer, and ultimately in advertising and branding. And in my experience, what I observed is that the process of how products come to market is actually broken. So in coming to SVA, what I wanted to do is really embrace myself in the making process. So I threw myself into the making process by first exploring the spaces that are overlooked and underutilized on the desktop space, ways you can work in your own professional space. So this led to my first breakthrough. And this is what led to the organizing principles. And for me, as a designer, what I'm really interested in is in designing things that are functional, things that are engaging, and things that are efficient in how they're used. And in this making process, what I found and discovered by making these products is that while these designs work for individuals, they don't necessarily influence the decision of who you are. And then lastly, I created a product called UpDown. And UpDown is a desktop organizer that minimizes clutter on your desktop space. And what it does, it creates place for you to work and place for you to produce your work. And what I found in making all these products, the things that they all had in common was first, they changed your mindset on how you work. They provided moments of delight. And ultimately, they created organizing ways. Afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm George Crichlow, and my thesis is called Organizing Principle. So today, what I'm going to do is take you through 4 things. I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to talk about products, people, and organizations. In my prior life, before SVA, I made a living in observing. The first product that I made is called Pedestal. And it's based on the idea and the notion that if you literally put your bag on a pedestal, it'll change your outlook on work. Second, moving to the top of the desk, I created a product called Spool. And Spool is a product that combines 2 things, a hat holder and a headphone stand. And what it does over time, when you combine the 2, it creates this playful character that becomes represented